If I was to put my experience of playing in the NFL into one word, it would be resiliency.
I mean, you have to put yourself in the mindset of someone who feels like he wasn't believed for so long, right? That he did everything he was supposed to do. He followed the rules, he worked hard, he got to where he needed to be, only to have all of that snatched away, right?
Think about the pressure, the fear, right? This idea that your life is going to be taken away from you, and you're so young, you can't even conceptualize what that means. Being away from your family, being away from your friends, and in the case of someone like Brian Banks, who had so much going for him and so much to look forward to. Also, I think something that's important to highlight is the role of plea deals and how plea deals are used to pressure people into confessing guilt for crimes that they did not commit simply because they're given two terrible choices.
When you come from families who don't have access to resource, power, privilege, etc., and you find yourself in the criminal justice system, in our courtroom, you are pressured to plead guilty, not because you are guilty. You are pressured to plead guilty because you simply don't have access to money. You don't have access to capital.
Languish in jail for all of these years, or you just say that you were guilty so that way you hope you can get out a little bit earlier. The system is failing. Black people, black men and black women, but particularly black men who find themselves in these situations where they're just given a plea deal and told to take it because that's the best thing on the table. And there's often evidence that could acquit them if this case went to trial, if they really fought it out in court, but people are not willing to take the time to do that, and so therefore they just go to jail.
So for the Black community, it's so interesting because when we think, we constantly tell young men oftentimes, right, or young people in general, you have to make it out. In many ways, there's only a number of ways to make it out. One, you either make it out through incarceration because you are incarcerated. Two, you make it out because you join a sports and you're able to get access to a higher income, or three, you're able to go to college. Those are really oftentimes the only opportunities where young people are able to leave the circumstances of their community. And when I think about the young men that I grew up with who oftentimes saw basketball, football, or baseball as an opportunity for them to make it out, it wasn't just about themselves. It was about enabling them to provide for their families. It was about enabling them to change the trajectory of their communities.
Let's look at it this way. So the average NFL player makes, I think, $2.1 million on average. So that's millions of dollars that Brian Banks lost out on simply because he was falsely accused of a crime he did not commit, and he spent that time behind bars. So yes, he missed out on millions of dollars. We're happy that he was eventually exonerated and did have that chance to go to the NFL. But I mean, stuff like this happens all the time, especially to people of color, men of color who are disproportionately locked up.
When I saw the Brian Banks story, when it initially came out, and I remember him being in a courtroom, and here he is, he has this shirt that says exonerate on it. And he was crying like a baby, man. And I remember just being so moved to tears, like literally standing in the common area of a federal prison institution, watching CNN, watching this guy in the courtroom with his hands, crying a fistful of tears.
If I was to put my experience of playing in the NFL into one word, it would be resiliency. The fact that I went through so much, had to deal with so much, was put through so much, and still was able to be physically and mentally in a position where I could chase after dreams that were taken away from me. I think that would be the best word, resiliency. I didn't give up, I didn't break.
When I was incarcerated, I knew that I was there for something that I did. I could not conceptualize being incarcerated for something that you did not do.
And there has to be real repercussions for that. There has to be real national dialogue and conversations around that, because what does it mean for a woman to be able to make a false accusation like that, or any individual to make a false accusation like that leads to someone's lifelong incarceration or even decades of incarceration? And so I think if we're really going to fix our system, we have to ensure that folks aren't making false statements. And we even see that with folks calling the police on people who are Black people who are just cooking out or like having parties in their neighborhood, right? Police have always been used as a tool to silence, to suppress, and to continue to regulate Black people to the margins of society.
But more importantly, I just feel like we cannot continuously sweep these types of instances under the rug as if it's not happening. We live in a world where, African Americans make up 16% of the U.S. population, somewhere around that, but over 65% of the incarceration population. That says a lot about who's being targeted, who's being arrested, and whose cases are sticking to the point of going to prison. So I just feel like there needs to be accountability across the board within our judicial system, and people need to be informed about how our system is currently operating. It's not a perfect system. It's not a failed system, but it is a system with many flaws that needs rectifying.